Welcome to the WITSA Women in Tech series, and we are now in episode 2. May is the month where we celebrate mothers, and in this special episode, we are taking that conversation into the boardroom. We're exploring how soft skills, resilience, and multitasking forged in parenting are actually the ultimate modern leadership assets. To help us unpack this, I'm thrilled to welcome Stela Lupushor. Stella is a workplace humanist, speaker, NYU faculty member, and the founder of Reframe.Work Incorporated. She is also the co-author of Humans at Work and Humanizing Human Capital. Now, her corporate resume is legendary. She has transformed workplace practices for global giants like IBM and PwC. But today, we are looking at leadership through a beautifully different lens. Stella is a passionate advocate for the idea that navigating the modern AI-driven workplace requires the exact empathy, adaptability, and human-centered focus that mothers use every day. Stella, it is an absolute honor to have you here to redefine what leadership really looks like. Welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation with you.
All right, let's get started. So looking back, what specific skills did motherhood develop in you that made you a more effective leader?
And I have to premise, or at least start with the fact that I have 3 children. They're all in different age brackets, about 5.5, 6 years apart. And they actually developed me more than anything I could have probably gotten from any leadership development programs. So in terms of the skills, if I think of mothership and how each child is very different and each child has its own characteristics and expectations and needs, both emotional, physical, etc. First thing that I have to comment on is the adaptability, right? You really need to think about each individual, either child or team member, in personalized way. It's a human being that requires different leadership style, management style, accommodations, motivations. So adapting your style based on what the human unique and beautiful in that uniqueness needs is one of the more important skills that I always bring into the teams I work in, or with the students that I teach, or back to my children and how I nurture and develop them.
Okay. And since you have a lot of experience in this, how do you personally, sorry, something is wrong with my camera here today. How do
No
you
worries.
personally manage the intersection of parenting, responsibilities of a senior leadership? What does balance actually look like for you?
It's so interesting because a lot of people think there is a magic formula to create that balance. And I think balance doesn't really exist per se, because it assumes there is an equilibrium that you can attain. It's more about integrating the roles and then creating support structures to fill in the gaps where you're not able to address. So having a network of people you can rely on for babysitting needs, having a network of people to support you when you're traveling. So all of that requires, of course, a lot of planning and thinking ahead of what the needs might be, and having plan B and plan C and friends around it. And especially as someone who did not grow up here in the US, as an immigrant, you always have to build your own support structure because you don't have the family structure to rely on. So it forced in a way to build those capabilities really early on, and not only be able to rely on them and lean when needed, but also give yourself grace when things don't work out. I have stories of forgetting my son on a soccer field just because I was so busy with some conference calls.
Guilty of that too.
We all do. And guilt, I think, it's the mother's middle name. And we just have to sometimes give ourselves permission to fail and be okay with that. And that in itself is a skill that the children need to learn from us, to not strive always for perfection and balance, but for integration, acceptable integration.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I don't really feel bad now for
Please
something that
don't.
happened 20 years ago. So,
They
so
don't remember it, by the way, just so you know.
okay. And since you become a mother, how does that affect your leadership behavior or skills when you lead your team?
I think it brought a degree of calmness to know how to navigate crises when they happen, to bring empathy into the conversations, because if you have high intensity, high velocity situations, you may not necessarily bring the skills and rational thinking that happens during the peacetime, so to speak, right? So you really need to add extra nurturing to people because they tend to exhibit different type of behavior. They may be experiencing mental health issues. So bringing a lot of that kindness and empathy into the team management, especially when there is a crisis, is very important. But in normal times, I think a lot it's about understanding the underlying dynamics between the team members. You will inevitably have somebody who is a lot more ambitious and would like to accomplish certain things, and that comes sometimes at the expense of teamwork or quality of the product or certain positioning. So really building relationships with each individual team members to understand what motivates them and how they want to, what success means to them, and then trying to create the space for each of them in their own unique way. And then knowing when to say, hey, time out, there is a misbehavior here, or there are conflicts that we need to discuss as a team. So bringing the conflict out and making it safe for people to have the conversation and reconcile things that don't make sense. So I always, had to solve for the drama at home, and that definitely build a lot of skills and resilience to bring it back into the workplace. And by the way, it's not just about your team members and people you supervise, but many times some of the drama occurs in the upper echelon that you need to deal with. So also knowing how to navigate those relationships, being a parent matters more than you would think, in terms of the skills you need to do that.
So I would think that being empathetic is a not one size fits all. It's individual. It's also home based and also workplace based, and it becomes very critical if you do not have that
Yeah,
empathy notion in you, right? So
absolutely.
I would like to ask, which of the parenting skills do you find most underrated in any workplace conversation?
And I want to bring this back into the workplace, right? We have a lot of enterprises or employers saying that they want soft skills that typically women bring.
Mhm.
But those are some of the harder skills to develop. So, for example, judgment under uncertainty, understanding how to motivate or resolve a crisis situation, or orchestrating people and tasks and activities and schedules and priorities. That requires a lot of cognitive load and a very different way of a broader perspective than just focus on getting to the outcome expected. Decision making when you don't have the full information. All of those are very important skills that come up every single day when you have to coordinate soccer trips and music recitals and packing lunch boxes, etc. So all of those are precisely the skills that caregivers, it's not just parents, right? Caregivers in general bring to the workplace, and they are the most transferable soft skills that the workplaces need, especially as the economic environment, political environment is changing, and companies are undergoing this continuous change. And you need to navigate the change with empathy, with kindness, but also with good decision making, ability to adapt and course correct as things develop, and definitely manage multiple work streams or multiple activities in parallel. So multitasking.
Um, so in that sense, you would need to prioritize, and that's based on you being well informed before you make that decision. But and we don't really we are not able to foresee when one day your child is sick or the car breaks down and you're off to an important meeting, or it's the board meeting or something. um, I would like to ask, in your case or in your situation, what was one example where you needed to choose between going to work or attending to a child that's not feeling very well and in need of an emergency attention? Did you have any?
Um, oh, multiple.
Okay.
Um, I had I had multiple situations with my son, especially since, as as many boys are boisterous and getting a lot of physical activity, and sometimes they get carried away. So I have a few situations. Once I was on a project locally, luckily, and I was on my way driving to the client site, and I get a phone call from my babysitter saying that, hey, he hit his head and is I think needs to be taken to the hospital. So of course you have to deal with the client and explain what's going on and prioritize taking the child to the hospital to get the stitches in. Another time I was actually I was in Boston and we live in New Jersey. So I get a phone call that he had a he had passed out in a coffee shop. And
Mm.
the good thing is, there is emergency um, services, and he got picked up and taken to the hospital. And again, his father went to visit and took care of him. And then I had to take the train and got home by 3 in the morning, which at the point made me feel really inadequate as a mother because I wasn't there to be with him. But at the same time, it also made me realize that there's not just one way of taking care of your child, right? There are systems, there are other adults, and there are protections in place that I'm really grateful for. They can take care of
Mhm.
him, and I can be there to support the post-drama recovery and transition process. So
Okay.
many stories, more than
Okay.
probably.
Thank you so
Um,
much for sharing that. I think it's good that you remember those, and I would say those are the two most significant episodes that had you uh, think rationally which way to go. So, what about organizations? Do you think they normalize family demands or emergencies, or they don't see it as they don't see it as, or rather, do they see it as a petty situation? What do you think?
with organization is complex, right? And as someone who worked remotely for most of my career, just because I was always on the road, I was traveling, working from home, I felt acutely how presenteeism impacts career prospects. Many women will choose more flexible work arrangements for all those reasons to be present with their children, and that impacts their visibility in front of the leaders, in front of the stakeholders that do make some of those decisions or are in the rooms where the conversations about career trajectory are held. So you have to work extra hard on making very deliberate decisions on when you need to be present, what occasions you need to take advantage of, to be able to demonstrate your commitment, to demonstrate your performance and dedication to the work and the company. and you have to be selective of what's realistic and what's not, and what matters most at what point in time. But a lot of organizations are doing their best, right? They do have um, uh, programs for women development. They have, you know, explicit focused attention on retention of women, be that through extended leaves or supporting both parents to take parental leave, or promoting pay transparency, which will create very different expectations for women as far as their role and ability to perform well, and feel that not only that they are rewarded for it. I think what's more important to think ahead for companies is thinking of that transition back, right? So let's assume you had a child, or you had the need to be a caregiver for a period of time, take care of your parents or family members. What is that reintegration back into the workplace? That is rarely thought about because things change in people's thoughts about their and the relationship with work and the company, and the demands at home change as well. And that requires a lot more nurturing and support, and that grace and that flexibility, even if it's just for a period of time, for people to reintegrate back in and have the support structure. So I think that's a big opportunity area for companies to consider.
Okay, which brings me to the next question of performance based. And traditionally, we see a lot of companies back then that's just about output based performance, KPI driven. A, a, you achieve something, and there's always a quota of that achievement. Um, do you think that has changed, or is it still something that companies are still using to rate and assess?
It's such a good question, and I, I I reflected on it a lot, because on one side you could say, look, if you know what the output needs to be, it makes it easier for women to engage in performing it, because it doesn't matter when you do it and how you do it, as long as it's done and is done well. And it doesn't require you to be 9 to 5. You can do it after you put the kids to bed at night, or you can do it from your vacation spot, right? So women figure out a way to be creatively um, engaging in the work, not necessarily in the traditional setting. On the flip side, I don't think companies know how to define outputs well, unless this is a sales quota and you need to attain it. But even then, many times the targets are unrealistic. Many times the targets assume that you'll be um, not taking time for the for the flexibility you need, so it'll backfire. But majority of the other roles are really difficult to define what that outcome looks like, and typically is left to the manager to decide. And many times in organizations where the performance management cycle is once a year, right, a lot of the accomplishments and a lot of the um, performance evidence gets forgotten, and it's very biased towards the most recent projects or accomplishments. So there's a lot of work from HR perspective to um, maybe deploy tools that allow performance feedback to be captured throughout the year. So it's not just what you remember, the latest thing to be
Mm-hmm.
done, or help managers and individuals capture a lot of those accomplishments and evidence, and make sure they get recognized throughout the year, not just once a year. And the last part is also consider the relationship between the performance management and the compensation. We use performance management as a way to guide decisions about the allocation of increases and promotions, etc. And many times we should look first at the market rates and pay people based on the market, and how market rewards certain skills, as opposed to whether or not you've accomplished a goal that might have been relevant at the beginning of the year, but not at the end of the year, or it's not necessarily helping move the needle for the business. So a lot of complex systems that are at play that may help or harm in the end. But
Mhm.
performance management is, of course, a very um, charged and emotional process in the end for anyone involved.
Emotional, emotional process. Yeah, I think I agree with that. And of course, we're often compared with the other genders, right? So I'm not sure if this is a sensitive question, but I'm just going to ask anyway.
Yeah,
How can um, colleagues and leaders who are men
yeah.
better support a workplace culture that respects and accommodates parenthood?
Yeah. The best way is to role model, right? They have to become allies and support through their behavior, not necessarily just through the things that they speak about, right? They actually have to show it.
They have to
If
become
they
empathetic as well.
if that's natural to them, why
Mm,
not? But leaving at 4 o'clock for a school event will show a lot of other male colleagues that it is okay. I think
mm,
sometimes you just need one person to show the way, to give permission to others to behave the same way, which
mm.
then opens up and normalizes it for everyone. Who's to say that it's just a woman's responsibility to be at the game, at the kids' game, or take the children to the doctor, right? So getting more involved and being open about it and explicit will go a long way to make it okay for everyone to do it.
Right, good. So if you can design one aspect of how the industry treats working parents, either the father or the mother, what would it be? And what would it take to make that happen?
And this is specifically to the tech industry or in general?
I would like to say the tech industry specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's an interesting sector, and of course you see a lot more entrepreneurial mindset, and it's more heavily represented in by male
Mhm.
population. And we do see companies deliberately trying to make more investment in STEM education for women and attracting women to some of these programs. But there are a lot of small things that worthwhile talking about that make a difference. One is having senior leaders, women in the company, will show that there is an opportunity and there is a career trajectory for younger women entering the organizational talent pipeline. Because if you don't see anyone there, it feels like you have no chance. It is also about creating more than just one leadership role for women. So it's not just a token women, because you will see a lot of times when you have a woman on a board, but it's mostly to just say we have a woman on a board as opposed to really caring about the voices in the room and the opinion that women may bring to the table. It is about deliberately investing in the leadership skills and having programs that help women support each other and be able to bring that voice, investing in employee resource groups and ability for women to speak at conferences and have that outlet for building the eminence and presence externally in the marketplace. So a lot of small things that accumulate and create a bigger impact that can have a disproportionate result compared to companies that just prioritize outcome-based performance, right? So and ultimately, the products will be better. The customers, when they see, especially female population, when they see women represented in the companies they work with, they'll be more likely to make purchasing decisions or build those relationships for the long term with your company. So it has a lot of business impact in the end that is worth talking about, but also not looking only at the gender, but looking at the age diversity too. If you prioritize just younger generation because they're young and unattached to families, and they are geniuses that just graduated from schools and have great ideas. All of that is great, but at some point in time, they'll all get older, and they will also need this support and flexibility and everything that we just talked about. So creating a more age diverse workforce is just as important as looking at it through the lens of gender.
Okay, so as a mother of three and owner of a business that has spanned over many years, what would be your biggest accomplishment as a mother and your biggest accomplishment as a business owner?
Um, Obviously, seeing very well-adjusted, independent children is one. They are all in technology, interestingly, but they bring their unique uh, personality to it, right? So my oldest daughter, she's very creative, very literate, loves to read. She always had the passion for languages. And she applied that passion to build conversational AI. So, yes, she's in technology, but she's bringing that language love to the technology aspect. My son is a music geek. He always played jazz trumpet in school, and he brought that passion for improvisation into the technology work. He's also in AI space and self-studying. He decided to just educate himself because there are no programs itself, master degrees or undergrad degrees that will allow him to specialize in the work that he wants to do. And then the younger one, she's more administrative. She likes to, manage things and manage people. So she decided to do computer science and business administration. So she's in college at the moment. So looking at how they are being realistic about the world of work that they are entering and the expectations that world of work has for technology literacy is very important. And then they can bring their own unique perspectives. And then from business perspective is really the ability to impact different personas along the way, be that at the global level, collaborating with WITSA and engaging in technology conversation about the impact of AI from labor force perspective, its ability to teach my students, because that's the next generation of leaders who will have that ability to impact the workplace at the practical level and policy they put in place. And then through the speaking and the book writing, because that gives the ability to spread the message much broader than just having one-on-one conversations with people. So bringing that human centricity to the client conversation is what drives me every day, because it's selfish. I'm influencing that for my children.
I understand. I understand. Okay, final question, Stella.
Yep.
What would be your advice for a woman who is already into her 40s and she's in between that position where she can go further, manage a huge division, or take a step back and take care of children at home? What would be your advice to that particular individual? It's not me, but someone.
It's such a tough question. And for me, it was never a choice. So I grew up in Soviet Union, and by default, you assume that women will have a career, they'll work, and they'll have children or decide not to, whatever the choice is. But um, I never had to make that choice. And I think I was lucky in a way compared to that 40-year-old woman that you're describing. And it's interesting. One of the students in my current class did have a reflection on exactly that. One is the pressure that women have to have children, and sometimes that's not what they want to pursue. And the pressure they put on themselves as well, because, well, if we don't have children, what's the future of humanity? What's going to happen to, my family line, etc. And it's a very personal choice, and it's about the circumstance you're in, and knowing your life priorities and your um, things that matter to you, and the timing as well, right? You probably have a lot more flexibility when you're younger, um, because you may have a lot more support or access to your parents who can come and take care of and help you out. But as you get older, it comes with other issues, especially for women. The motherhood may become more limited, but there's no right or wrong answer. I think it's very personal, and it's very um, honest.
To each his
But
own.
it's everyone has to make the decision.
Yeah.
But looking back, yes, it was tough. Yes, there was a lot of challenges, but I'm now the cool mom because the kids want to spend time with me. And I have, my own party that I can organize with them. I don't need to have anybody else. And
All
they're actually
right.
teachers and inspiration and what drives me up and what keeps me busy, um, no matter what age they are. So if that's
Mhm.
something that is of interest to you, hey, worthwhile thinking about it.
I am super proud of you, Stella, as a mom and also as a career woman. It's something that I hope one day to aspire to be as well. So thank you so much, Stella, for spending a few minutes with us. And I hope that we can learn a lot of things through this episode. And to all mothers out there, for the next couple of days, please celebrate yourself and soar higher, fly further. Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day, and thank you for bringing these topics to the world.